Yeah, the situation with John Morant, the superstar for the Memphis Grizzlies, apparently occurred uh, early Saturday morning, about 5:30 a.m. Saturday morning. They had played a game in Denver, which they got thoroughly stomped by the Joker and the Denver Nuggets. And Ja filmed himself in a strip club. He used his social media accounts to stream to video himself in a club while he was dancing to some music and apparently flashed a gun. Don't know if it was a real gun or whatever, but he flashed a gun, and this led to quite a bit of backlash and, of course, concern, uh, not only for him but the NBA obviously is concerned about the image that is projected. The NBA has rules against players, um, having guns, when they're, in the process of conducting business. And NBA road trip, say they played in Denver Friday night, they play in Los Angeles tonight, and again on Tuesday night. So he was on a business trip. The Memphis Grizzlies responded by suspending him. They didn't call it a suspension, no, saying that he wouldn't be playing in the next two games, and he made a statement that he would be taking some time away to get some help. Now, this is part of a series of incidents involving guns and Ja, uh, two of which have not been proven. One involved a 17-year-old who was playing basketball apparently at his home, and they got in a fight, and Ja apparently flashed a gun or you pulled a gun out during that incident. And then there was an incident involving the Indiana Pacers team bus after there was an altercation during the game in which one of Ja's somebody that was part of his entourage was removed from the game, and the people on the Indiana Pacers bus thought that a laser attached to a gun had been pointed in the bus. Very interesting that they didn't call the police or anything to report that. So this I think is part of the game culture that some young people, even a multimillionaire like John Morant, an NBA superstar, all star, uh, seems to want to be part of. I don't know, what kind of advice he's getting from who, or if he's listening to any. I know that Jim Tanner, his agent, is a black male, a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill and the University of Chicago Law School, where he took classes under then Professor Barack Obama. I don't know how much that helps the situation or not, but when Morant says he needs help, the question is, what kind of help will he get? Will it be people who are able to understand, what's going on with this young man, as appears to be going on, and in fact is going on with a lot of young black males in the United States and around the world for that matter. But Dr. Amos Wilson called it the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation. These are influences that in get inside the mind of children at a young age, and then they express themselves at later ages. It may be a result of mother or father, listening to music that the child is going inside the child's mind, and all of a sudden, these influences then reflect themselves physically and mentally at later points. I don't know, if that's what's going on, but I do think that these young males need someone that has both the historical knowledge, the consciousness, and the professional skills. Someone like the black psychologist, Dr. DeReef Jameson of the University of Alabama at Birmingham, to come in and give them some guidance. Uh, of course, you know, there are programs for our youth, but there are some males in their 20s who still need to be in these programs because actually never gone through the process of manhood training. Although Ja has, his father seems to be in attendance at every game and has had some incidents himself with various people, Shannon Sharp and others. So, we're just hoping that, we believe that all of these young men who have engaged in self-destruction and who are engaging in self-destruction, some of which are incarcerated, of course, thousands have been killed, well over 250,000 in the past 25 to 30 years. Well, 250, 260,000 black males have been killed as a result of violence, in the United States. We believe that all these young men have the capacity to transform themselves, but they need some type of guidance. And the guidance can only come from people, in my opinion, who are culturally grounded, who understand all of the historical factors and the psychological factors that are driving this behavior. And we hope that Ja Morant, in fact, and all of these young men, will be able to get this type of guidance via some type of cultural programming, because we are quite frankly just losing way too many of our youth to violence.
Quick comment, brother. I understand or it's come to my attention that the Maasai, upon greeting each other, raised the question, how are the children? And generally or traditionally, the response has been, the children are well. Suffice it to say, this places a great deal of emphasis on the welfare of the children. If we were to raise that question here in the United States domestically, I wonder to what degree would it change the consciousness just through a simple greeting. But we're at a point in time, if the question were raised, how are the children? The response invariably would be, the children are not well, but they can be. I know Brother Amos did a thing on the origins of humanity over the male's place. I was hoping he would give us a snippet, because if we, pay close attention to what the great Dr. Asa Hilliard and others have said, as it relates to the dynamics of domination, the erasure of history is one of the cultural components that are so critical in terms of this domination that he describes. Not only Hilliard, but people like Amos Wilson, Marimba Ani, and how it ties into culture, history and culture being critical in the orientation, of a group of people. I talked to Panthers, in a benign type of conversation, who never heard of Eddie Robinson. You got a large percentage of brothers in the major leagues who've never heard of Kurt Flood.
Yeah, okay. When I look at this, and listening to what you said, Baba Makaru, one of the things that I initially thought about it being the fact that Ja does have his father in his life. When it came to the murder of our brother Tyree Nichols, it was Jason Whitlock, or Whitelock as you like to call him, came out and said that this was a product, the black cops and Tyree Nichols was a product of single black women or single black mothers raising boys. And this is why we have these types of situations taking place, where this is an example where you have a man who had a father in his life who is still doing things that a man should not do. And it more so relates to what you said. The missing piece is manhood initiation, because you can be a father of a young male and still not train them on how to be a man, how to properly be a man. And this is one of the things that Judge Joe Brown talked about in some of his videos, where he sort of talked about toxic masculinity, what people like to call toxic masculinity. And he was basically saying that there is no such thing as toxic masculinity, because masculinity teaches you not to do what John Morant did. So,
Well,
well, I was going to say, I think
okay.
that the more pivotal piece is that need for manhood initiation programs all over this country for Black males. Similarly to how in the Jewish community, Jewish boys go through a bar mitzvah in order to become a man, there has to be a process that African boys are going to have to start to go through in order to truly be considered a man in the African community. And those things should teach you things like how to control your emotions, how to think critically, how to be balanced uh, through all facets of life, so that when they grow up, then they have the tools and the experiences and mentality that would be necessary to navigate, throughout various situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Manhood clearly is a creative act, and in too many instances, you can be gainfully employed as a man in the house and yet still be a deadbeat dad.
Mm.
We saw this depiction in the movie called Drumline. Father gainfully employed, but he was a deadbeat dad. Just because you're a dead broke dad, that does not necessarily mean that you are a deadbeat dad. And I'll just leave it right there. But Jason Whitlock, obviously he's trying to appeal to whomever. He's dealing with a situation where he's not really contextualizing all of the historical, socio-economic forces that have impacted the family. A lot of these problems are systemic. Where a woman is being rewarded if a man is not in the house. You're talking about the decline of the destruction of a highly intensive economic manufacturing base. Obviously a man was there, but because kids were there, but the man is gone. I mean, clearly, the loss of a job is a loss to a man's mental health. It's evidenced by a larger society's propensity, to commit suicide during an economic downturn. We've seen that recently during the Great Depression historically, where scores and scores of men have committed suicide, twinned with the rise in various hallucinogens, drugs, fentanyl, opioid addiction being quite prevalent, all related to, destruction of this economic base, which Whitlock, even if he knew the truth, he would give it to you because he's established the brand, and he's trying to appeal to that element, for compensation and pay and, the various resources that he can procure as a result of, being a dadgum coondastic, a Quimbo or dadgum Sambo. It's Tim Scott. I mean, there's more coons and Quimbos and Sambros than there are rice in China. And he's the latest oversized Quimbo, an embarrassment to buckwheat.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the thing that a lot of people, who operate from the same Eurocentric fragmented mentality of Jason Whitelock, they never deal with the root causes of these problems. You see, all of this violence that we see taking place in our community today, and this self-destructive behavior, was not a factor was not a major factor in our community. And I don't want to paint a false picture that, you know, everything was a bed of roses, because it wasn't. But 60 years ago, a lot of the things that we see taking place in our community today were absolutely unheard of. And the fundamental reason why is because in 1960, 75% of Black children were being raised in a two-parent family. And I've said many times on here, it was the assault on the Black family, which was organized by the United States government in various ways, resulted in, beginning with the expansion of the welfare state, of course, the massive introduction of drugs, the assault on the Black liberation movement, the removal of critical leadership, the removal of Black males from the labor force, the blue-collar industrialized labor force. A series of factors have led to this condition. And anyone that's blaming just one factor, the rise of single-parent families, you know, is absolutely out of their minds. Of course, you know, we know that this guy's feeding at the trough of neoconservative white supremacy, so we understand where he's coming from. But when the issue was raised by Daniel Moynihan, who was working for the Johnson administration, which was in the process of expanding the welfare state, when he did his study on the Black family in 1965, he said that a 25% out of wedlock family situation would be a crisis. And so the report was issued in 1965. And over a period of 30 years, you went from 25% to 35 to 50, all the way up to, in some instances, 70% of our children being raised in a single parent family. Okay, I have this problem in my own family, as I've said many times. I have to be completely honest. So until we understand the root causes of the problem and make it a priority to correct that, then these situations are going to continue. If we've been here for 400 years, and for 340 of the 400 years, we didn't have this problem, and suddenly we have a problem, then we have to understand why. And one of the major reasons is because everyone attacked Moynihan. They killed the messenger. They attacked the messenger, and obviously he had ulterior motives. But no organization made it a focus. Now, the one organization that probably would have made it a focus would have been Omowale Malcolm X's Organization of Afro-American Unity, the OAAU, would probably have recognized this, that we cannot function like this, because when we look at the African world, and I was looking the other day at some beautiful pictures of Queen T, or Tayi, and Amenhotep III. And it just, the thought that, and I didn't capture the picture, and I lost where the site was, but I mean, I can refine, you know, I can find additional pictures of them. But what they symbolize, right, and they were in the 18th dynasty, and we're talking about going back to the pre-dynastic period, all the way up to the first dynasty under Narmer. This whole civilization was built on strong Black families. What is a dynasty? What does the word Pharaoh mean? House. Everything is related to family. That's the entire foundation. That's how African people were able to walk the earth as free, proud, productive, prosperous, and powerful people. Who were the backbone? Who were the backbones of our most recent mass-based activity in this country? The civil rights movement, the strong Black families of the Deep South. And I guess Joe Biden was in Selma today, which the Democrat Party have just made the ceremonial bridge crossing an absolute circus. Selma, one of the poorest countries. Well, in fact, it has the highest poverty rate in the state of Alabama, which makes it one of the most highest concentration of poverty in the whole country. But these were the people who invested the most and benefited the least from civil rights. But because the strong black families produced the people who began to issue the call for black power and black liberation, the black family came under attack. And I don't understand why we can't see that as our number one priority.